Breaking news, retail sales slumped almost 4% in December. That's following 11 consecutive monthly rises. Joining me now is business reporter Edward Boyd. Ed, it's a big fall. It suggests that even though we thought maybe it was just a soft end of the year, people did a lot more shopping than we realised in November, and now cost of living pressures are really biting.
Cost of living pressures are clearly biting the Australian consumer. If we look at the key stats for retail spending in December, you can see spending fell 3.9% just in 1 month. That's after 11 consecutive months of record spending in Australia's economy. Over the course of the 12 months, though, retail trade was up 7.5%, but the monthly figure for December was $34.5 billion, so down quite significantly month on month. If we go to the next slide, you can see some of the places where consumers tightened up their spending. Food retailing, that did increase. But have a look at this. Household goods down almost 8%. Clothing down about 13%. Department store sales down about 14%. Restaurants and cafes spending there was flat. But clearly the Bureau of Statistics today said the cost of living pressures are starting to bite. They say in the month of November, which was a record month for retail spending, a lot of Australians used that time to buy all their Christmas shopping early, taking advantage of the Black Friday sales, and then they cut back quite heavily in the month of December. So it's a very surprising number here from the Bureau of Statistics. Economists were expecting retail spending to fall by 0.3%. Instead, it's down almost 4% in just 1 month.
It's a big difference. What you highlighted there as well, Ed, discretionary items, the things that we can choose to spend money or not, were the big sliders there. So the Reserve Bank, maybe not popping the champagne, maybe it's just some cheap Australian sparkling. They don't want to add to inflation, but this is what they wanted to see, isn't it?
The Reserve Bank really wants to see Australians tighten up their spending because the theory is if there's less spending in the economy, prices will have to come down at retailers. That will reduce inflation. So the RBA wants to see these sorts of numbers. I just had a quick look at the stock market reaction immediately after the news, and the market has popped a little bit. So the market's now sort of pricing in potentially they won't need to be as many rate increases this year. I know Deutsche Bank are predicting another 4 rate increases to bring the cash rate up to 4.1%. Perhaps today's retail numbers may tweak those forecasts, and potentially the peak of the cash rate may be a little bit lower now that we're starting to see the real impact of rate increases on Australia's economy in December. So Aussies really started to tighten up their spending, and that's a good sign for Australia.
What's interesting out of this is we've obviously had the quarterly inflation figure out not so long ago. It was higher than expected. It led everyone to go, well, you know, how many more rate hikes are needed? This was just December and a key one of retail. So perhaps indicates that while the first 2 months things were still roaring ahead, we are going to see things ease off and maybe only another 1 or 2 rate rises. Certainly the next one you'd think the RBA will move again, Ed, because we've just had, you know, a big quarter of inflation, but then it might be a sort of wait and see.
Yeah, the next board meeting is on the 7th of February, and it's widely expected from all economists that the RBA will lift rates by at least 25 basis points. There's a couple out there that think it could be 50, but look, after today's retail sales figures showing Australians did start to cut back on that consumer spending in December, that's a good sign. You do talk about inflation. It jumped to almost a 3-decade high in the December quarter of 7.8%, which was a lot more than what economists were predicting. But I think you can see here, potentially Australians did start to cut back on that spending when they saw prices were so high in December. They bought all their things during the November month, during the Black Friday sales. And now I think we're starting to see tightening further in the economy in January too.
Really interesting figure that's dropped there, Ed. We'll let you get away and conduct some further analysis on that, in particular some of those individual spending items. But that is significant when it comes to how many more rate rises we'll see. That December retail figure, just repeating, down nearly 4%.